And this is why we need a bigger meeting space.
Only if there's a big development.
All the details.
In any event, we are ready to start.
Awesome, thank you so much. Welcome, everybody, to the December 17, 2024 meeting of the Land Use and Waterfront Committee. My name is Majid Abdul Samad. I am the chair of the committee, and tonight we're joined by Assistant District Manager Brendan Burke. The meeting is called to order at 6:32 p.m. As a reminder, New York State law requires all committee members who are not able to attend the meeting in person to have their cameras on and their first and last names displayed from the time the meeting is called to order until the time the meeting is adjourned. Members of the public who are attending virtually, you can raise any questions or comments through the Q&A feature of Zoom. There are no members of the public here, so just raise your hand, I'll identify you to speak. We don't have a minutes taker for tonight, but I don't think I've taken minutes this year yet, so
Your committee.
I will.
I'll go. Take it easy.
Okay, I appreciate it, thank you. Okay, so with that, Brendan, will you conduct roll call, please?
Yes. Committee members, I will call your name. When your name is called, please say present. I will announce if there is quorum. Majid Abdul Samad.
Present.
Tanya Arias. I don't see. Victoria Benatar. I also don't see yet. Jim Collins.
Yep.
Maya Donahue won't be with us tonight. Out Militic.
Present.
Rich Mintz.
Present.
Larry Shire.
Present.
Tendra Sherrod.
Present.
Letty Simon.
Present.
Susan Steinberg.
Present.
Gabe Terzo.
Present.
And James Vera.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Awesome, thank you so much. The agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and is reflected on the screen before you. If there are no objections, we'll adopt the agenda. Members of the committee, if you object, please raise your hand. Seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. And the minutes from our last meeting, that's October 28th, were distributed ahead of time, of course, because we didn't meet in November. If there are no objections, we will adopt the minutes as drafted. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the minutes, please raise your hand. Again, seeing none, meeting minutes from October 28th are adopted, and they will soon be available on the CB6 website. Quick ground rules, no one may speak until granted the floor. Committee members here in person, if you have a question, please, or you would like to make a motion, please raise your hand, I'll identify you to speak. If you're unable to attend in person, please raise your hand through Zoom and I'll identify you to speak. It's extremely important that we speak one at a time so folks watching at home can understand what is being said for the record. Chat function should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties and any items that were already stated in writing, like an email address. During the record, and say it aloud for the record during the meeting. So with that, we can start our meeting with EDC. We have a presentation from NYC EDC on the proposed repair and enhancement work at the Skyport Marina and Garage.
Great.
For being here.
Everyone. My name is Gigi Lee. I am in EDC's Government and Community Relations team. I will be starting off the presentation and then I'll online, we also have Greg Dixon and then Sean, who is from our consultant team, who will walk you through the details of the rehabilitation in more detail. Where's the clicker?
That's over here.
Let's see. Forward. There we go. Okay, so we'll just start very quickly with an orientation. We'll talk about EDC's role, and then we'll go into the scope of project and existing conditions. So you'll see sort of like what you have now and sort of, what we're proposing. So just to orient everyone, the red box is the project site. And so right nearby, you have the Stuyvesant Cove Ferry Landing, certainly Stuyvesant Cove Park. Peter Cooper Village Stuytown is just right across the street. And then you have the Asser Levy Rec Center. You also have the VA not far, as well as the UN International School, and then of course, the East River Greenway. I am, and the location is on 23rd and FDR Drive.
Waterside Plaza.
And what, yes, and of course, sorry, Janet, if you're on, Waterside, Plaza. I'm told that I have to, just make this clarification. Skyport Marina, EDC also does oversee, the heliports, and our downtown Manhattan heliport is now being run by a joint venture called Skyports. And those have been confused, but we are not, that project is separate and distinct from this project. They're just, off by one letter. So, Skyport Marina, just the background, again, opened in 1962. It is owned by EDC, but it's operated by, Dock NYC, who is an operator that, contracts with us for all of our citywide, waterfront docks and SP parking. There's currently, it's an 8-deck parking lot, with 570 spaces. Just over 300 of them are, monthly, sort of what, I think they would consider sort of like nearby residential folks that like park their cars in there. I know that was something that, you guys had asked for clarification on, in terms of like daily sort of local users. 14 slips, which are fully utilized here. And they are used, for citywide, vessels that, do sort of different types of excursions and charters. And then, of course, there's the seaplane dock, which is the only seaplane dock, in New York City, and services a variety of other Northeast seaplane docks. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Greg. I would say the only thing that I would like to mention and sort of ground the conversation and presentation on is that this is solely a rehabilitation project. I think like we're gonna kind of keep like mentioning that to you guys, like this is a safety rehabilitation capital project. So Greg, are you ready to take over?
Yep, I'm here. Thank you,
I'll
Gigi.
advance the slides for you.
All right. Thank you, and good evening, everybody. My name is Greg Dixon. I'm the Vice President of the EDC Asset Management Design and Construction Team. I lead the Waterfront Inspection Program and Capital Repairs. And so, as Gigi was mentioning, the current project site was part of the inspection program. And just to give a little history about why the EDC deals with waterfront inspections. Initially, the city was known as the Clean Harbor. That was just due to the fact that there's so much pollution into the water. Whenever you came into the city, your hull would essentially be clean. But after the Clean Water Act, we had an adverse effect where essentially microorganisms now have a better environment to thrive in. And since a lot of our infrastructure is timber, we face the adverse effect of a lot of marine board deterioration. And so through departments of ports and trades, as well as through SBS, we kind of became the sole, I don't know if they sole, but the main kind of responsible party for managing the city's water. And so if we go to the next slide, we have a summary explaining what the inspection program is, and what it really involves is basically performing these cyclical inspections every 3 to 5 years, where we identify conditions through our inspections. They have recommendations a part of them, which kind of outline when repairs should be done, as well as providing budget and funding cost estimates. Just to, before we get into the project, Skyport Marina is one of our assets here at EDC. Initially, there were supposed to be repairs back in 2016. Those were pushed out due to budget reasons. We performed a updated inspection in 2021, which then kind of influenced this current project, which we are going to be presenting here. But just to generally go back to like why we are doing the project, as Gigi was mentioning, this is more of a state of good repair necessity to make sure that we don't have any infrastructure that kind of collapses or cause any life safety issues. And so I'll stop there if there's any questions. If not, we can continue with the presentation.
Good.
Back in 2016, EDC did a presentation to this committee. Are you aware of what was said then?
No, I'm not aware of what was discussed back in 2016.
Okay, let me just briefly recap the highlights. Hurricane Sandy had done a number on the Skyports Marine, and it was considered to be in really bad shape at that point. Emergency repairs were said to be required, and while they were going to do the work along the west bulkhead where the ship's nose in, and passengers board from the upland, they were going to improve the circulation and eliminate interference with the bikeway by creating an internal wooden dock and connection to the gangways to the boats within the marina. What has become of that idea?
I will say that was before my time. I don't know if this was before Greg's time, but I'm happy to look into it. We were not aware of that plan.
Okay, because we have had an ongoing safety issue
Mhm.
with people congregating in the bike path, and also with now Ubers trying to pick up and drop off people. And if there were a possibility to bring people within the facility to wait for their boats, that would really help.
Okay, we'll look into it.
Right, go ahead, Greg.
That was it for my slide.
I have one other question. I'm sorry. Back in the day, you had a lot of transient boats that would rent slips there, which was personally I thought was a great idea, rather than having it all turned over to party boats. There also was a commercial fueling dock for vessels that were traveling on the East River to purchase diesel on their way. Is that commercial fueling dock going to continue?
Max, are you on? Can you speak to that?
I'm on the line. I actually I don't want to speak misinformed here, and Max Taffet, Senior Vice President of the Ports, Waterfront, and Transportation Asset Management team. My team oversees our operations of our operating agreements at Skyport Marina. Sean, I'm asking you because you may be tighter on this, but I don't believe today there is commercial fueling at the marina. Is that correct?
No, we're not aware of any fueling. The utilities that are available, depending on the slip, are electric, plumbing, and sanitary pump out.
Well, the fueling dock was adjacent.
Was
That was adjacent to where the
The gas
seaplanes
station. Oh, where the seaplanes are. Okay.
on that external pier at the end of the pier.
So that's no longer present. But appreciate the context there, and the perspective that it may be worth looking into, in terms of just echoing, and I think wanting to also jump into this, it may make more sense to have some of these questions and discussion following the remainder of the presentation, because it might mitigate some back and forth that's going to be answered here. But happy to look further into the fueling consideration. The kind of vessels that are in these slips are primarily excursion related vessels through the Dock NYC program, and these are small businesses, a number of them minority owned businesses in New York City that are dependent upon these slips through our Dock NYC program for home porting as well as passenger boarding for related excursions. Any other kind of table setting questions, maybe kind of parsing before the detailed stuff that might get answered after or in the course of the detailed presentation?
We can go ahead with the rest of the presentation and we'll group our questions later.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so thanks, Max, Greg, Dee. So to introduce myself, I'm Sean Dershel. I'm project manager with McLaren Engineering. We're the consultant partnering with EDC on not only this project, but a number of other waterfront projects, inspection, repairs, and the like for their assets around the city. So just kind of a brief overview of how this project came to be. EDC maintains a waterfront facilities maintenance management system that includes kind of a accessible catalog of the inspections that everybody is doing, because there's multiple consultants over multiple years. That information can very easily be lost without that sort of system. So they keep a relatively tight ship in order to make sure their facilities are inspected and assessed so that things can be properly funded and planned. So it's not an emergency if, you know, something fails. It's not a surprise if something goes or has some sort of issue. So Skyport specifically, we being McLaren conducted routine inspection in 2021, identified a number of deficiencies that were designated as a priority repair, meaning they should be done within the next couple of years. And based on those recommendations, EDC solicited or worked into their capital program the funding required to perform these repairs, and we kicked off this project last year with an additional round of inspections so that our plans are, you know, only a year or two old instead of 4 years old. So the project objectives, as the folks from EDC have emphasized, this is a maintain state of good repair project. It's repairs, it is reconstruct elements that have corroded or fallen away over time. It is improved the resiliency of the operations for either storms or for issues with those seaplanes, and just maintain operations as is. No additional parking spaces, so there should be no changes to traffic, no additional marina slips, and really no changes to operations in general. This is repair and rehab. And kind of go through, so this is kind of a summary of the different activities that are going to be going on or that are proposed to go on around the marina. There's a lot of different parts and pieces, so we kind of have to tackle all of them individually. As far as the timeline, we're looking for, actually I'll go through the assets first. So the platform supporting the Greenway, which I'll just kind of pull this graphic up to explain. This is a timber platform that is supporting the shoreline, which includes the bike path, the Greenway. That needs, or that is proposed for some timber pile and structure repairs. Again, to keep it in good repair, so you don't have any failures that cause sinkholes or things like that. The marina docks, there are multiple docks around the marina that need to be replaced, the docks and gangways. There's one spot where the current configuration is not necessarily efficient, and there's some repairs to utilities, including electrical and plumbing. Again, like I mentioned earlier, depending on the individual dock, there's either electric, water, and or sanitary pump out available for those boats that use marina. that routes back through the parking garage into the public supply. The parking garage itself, would receive a number of pile and concrete repairs. I'll show you some photos about with some existing conditions. Interesting, this is a very much a unique structure in that it's a parking garage completely over water. There's some facade repairs to be done, and the certain electrical equipment within the garage is in need of replacement in order to maintain state of good repair. The pile supported walkway, which you can see here, is also over water. Majority of it we've assessed can be maintained with repairs, which includes pile casements and repairing the concrete. There is the section, the offshore section that's shaded in red, is a little bit too far gone to repair in a practical manner. So the project would be to reconstruct it with, more durable modern materials. And where you see the green dashed line, the facility originally had a wave screen, which we'll show you some photos, essentially a fence that, disrupts wave energy. It's long gone, so the project would also include constructing a new timber wave screen to reduce waves and swells and things in the marina itself.
Is that essentially like a tight picket fence made out of timbers? Okay.
And then the seaplane dock, if you want to move I don't know if Brandon can move the.
Yes.
Thank you. So the seaplane dock pictured in red on the right side there, would be reconstructed, replaced with new piles, new float, and size from 40 by 30 to 90 by 30. The current seaplane dock has some, for lack of a more technical term, it bucks around in the waves. And being the only seaplane dock, if there have been incidents where if one seaplane dock cannot leave, a second cannot berth. There's only room for one. It's not like a dock a boat dock where the seaplanes can pull up at all different corners because of the wingspans and where the piles would be. The seaplane dock would be expanded to have essentially a backup place for seaplanes to berth. Susan,
you have a question? Thank you. I was just wondering, during the course of a day, how many seaplanes land and dock and go away and take off?
For GG Max, it's seasonally. It's most active over the summer. But
I'm sorry, what?
How many?
Most active during the summer.
We can try to get that for you, Susan. We don't have that number right now.
Okay, I would look forward to it. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Taking questions.
I'll point out that during the proposal that was made in 2016, there was also a plan to double the number of active seaplanes that were in service at this facility. And the way this is being described would get you to the same place. What guarantees are there that you would not increase the level of service which Susan was asking about?
I mean, there is going to be, I think, like we said before, we are not doing this project to change anything operationally that would allow for any increase in any of the services that you see here, right? I can't sit here and promise you that if we have 2 seaplane, they absolutely will not increase, but it's not the intent of this project.
I have 3 questions.
yes,
First, when do you propose this work is going to be done and how long will it take? Because there's a school, as you probably know, just to the north of this facility. And I can imagine that if you're driving piles and things like that, that will substantially interrupt their class days. Second question is, what's the cost, your capital cost you're estimating to do this project? And third, will there be any increase in the fees to the parking residents and the boats that dock there?
Okay, I can answer the first two, GG Max deferring the
Okay.
third. So we're looking, again, based on the timing of permitting, that's one of the unknowns in terms of scheduling.
Mhm.
But we're looking for the garage repair work, to begin, again, depending on, different permitting and approvals, probably second quarter next year. It's gonna be, again, depending on the extent of the repairs, sequentially, probably about a 3-month, process. We've spoken with, the folks that manage the garage, and the work is intended to be sequenced where they're only working 1 out of the 8 decks at a time. So there won't be any full closures, of access to the garage. The intent is that it be maintained, so the work may take a little bit longer if you stretch it out, but obviously shutting down the garage is not an option. The marina work, looking at third Q3 next year. About 6 months on and off. A lot of the work is, I'll say hands-on. So the pile driving would largely be limited to the reconstruction here, and where there's just a couple new there are a couple where there are new piles going in for the floats, which is pretty quick timeline. The majority of the duration is, and I'll go into some of the kind of what some of the repair work looks like. Not too noisy.
Well, I'm just wondering if you anticipate it will be noisy, could you coordinate with, I think there's 2 schools there. There's a UN school and Institut Français or something like that.
Yeah, we can, I mean, that's
Just
definitely something we can
maybe
coordinate in the contract documents.
in
We
the
can
morning or
specify
night.
the pile driving work has to
Right.
occur within certain hours.
Right.
As long as it's in the bid documents, the contractors have to abide by it and they'll factor it into their price.
All right. And the other 2 questions?
The question with the cost, I think right now our estimate is, our latest estimate was somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think it was 12 million.
Yeah, 12 or 14, so, but yeah.
Okay, and are you gonna be able to recoup any of that from the people that actually use the facility?
So these facilities exist today. We need to make sure that there is that this parking garage does not collapse due to pile undermining. Similarly, we need to make sure that while people are walking on the esplanade, on the uplands, which is included as a part of the scope for the bikeway, that there's no interruption of that path. And we need to make sure that for the users of the facility that there's safe continued access to these vessel berths. In the case of both the parking garage as well as the marina, we have operators. In the case of the parking garage, we have the operator SP Plus. SP Plus is operating this at sort of market rates for what is the kind of parking rates and market for this part of New York City. So as much as I would love to be able to turn around and say to keep this parking garage in existence, we're going to be doubling everybody's parking prices. And I think, there's all sorts of different policy considerations. That's not something that is directly tied to this project. We're balancing a parking operator who is tasked with running a parking garage that pays for the costs of the daily operations of that parking garage. And similarly, yep.
How much do you get from the garage operator every year?
I'd have to get back to you on those specific numbers, but it is not a substantial return to the city. A lot of these facilities are sort of operating as general public services to New York City.
It just strikes me odd that in a city that's gonna be charging, $15 an hour, $15 to drive below 60th Street, that we're accommodating additional parking. You know, we should policy one way or the other.
Appreciate
And now
that
that-
perspective.
Okay, now that we have slide 11 up, let me illustrate the comment that I had earlier about the proposal in 2016 to improve the circulation and operation of the marina. Along the left side, along the bulkhead, where you see the dotted red line, that is where you would extend the existing floating pier all the way down to the UN school. And it seemed like a good idea then. It still seems like a good idea in order to improve your circulation. The fuel dock is the solid red area on the right, and at the furthest extreme of it, that's where the fuel pumps were casual citizen boaters would pull up and refuel. And just one last comment about the parking garage, something that isn't mentioned, but a friend of mine is one of these monthly parkers. She tells me that the elevator is in need of rehabilitation, but that's not listed here as one of the capital project improvements.
That's usually about at least $250,000, at least.
At the minimum.
Yeah.
At the minimum.
Is that the end of your presentation?
No, I have some,
Depending on how
I
many
have some
cars.
photos.
Yeah.
Yeah, should we finish it?
Yeah. So just to kind of visually summarize what the table I had explained, so in the parking garage, number of concrete and steel repairs, electrical equipment replacement, and some facade improvements for safety. Repairs under the greenway, repairs to the fixed walkway or a portion of it, and demolition to a portion that is a little bit too far gone to just repair. New timber wave screen, reduce waves in the marina. And then repairs to a majority of the docks. There's a different ownership situations where EDC owns some, the charter companies own others. This is the dock that I had mentioned would potentially be converted from a 3 float assembly into just 1. Still remaining 2 slips, and then the seaplane dock out at on the right side, closer to the East River, replacing it with a 90 by 30 float.
Mhm.
I'm going to do some photos and just kind of some of the proposal of the work. This is the structure that supports the East River Greenway between 25th and 23rd Street. It's timber piles, timber framing, and then all of the concrete and fill and soil is built on top of it. There are better pictures, there are worse pictures, but so the work would be to encase these piles that are a little bit that are starting to neck from we're experiencing a lot of corrosion. As you can see, the graphic on the right, the repair looks essentially like you wrap a jacket around it and you pump it full of epoxy and you splice in any additional reinforcement that's needed. The timber pile caps, which you can see here, where these sections are rotting out, we splice in new ones. Some photos of the existing docks. This is the 3-dock complex closer to the garage entrance that would is proposed to get replaced to a single dock. There's a number of docks, they're all in different conditions, gangways in different conditions. Some get replaced, some can just get repaired. And that'll get assessed when the project gets to construction. There'll be an additional survey by the contractor to make sure it's almost like a punch list of things to do. The seaplane dock, this is the dock that is there right now. You can see a photo of it with and without a seaplane at it.
It looks really small when you look at it this way.
Yeah, I mean, it's 30 by about 1,200 square feet.
Yeah, that's really small.
And you can see that one plane is tied up at it, as you see in the photo on the right. There's really nowhere else for another plane to go. The wing is kind of hidden by the perspective, but it almost comes to the back of the dock. So if another plane were to pull in, it would be a safety issue of the wing potentially striking one of those piles. So that would be increase in footprint is really the way to have that redundancy. So see a graphic of what the new dock would potentially look like in either a 1 seaplane or 2 configuration. See in red is where it's just 1, and then if it needed to be shifted over to make room for a second, there's room. This is the status or the condition of the structure that is supporting the parking garage. As I mentioned, the entire parking garage is over water. There's no fill underneath it. It's bearing on piles. And you can see that between there aren't really any good underwater photos. But you can see a number of the columns, a number of the beams and girders, concrete casements need repair.
Is that a very unusual situation to have a garage built over water like that?
It's the only one I've encountered in my
I
time.
mean. No, it's okay, because I know we want to get to the end of it. I have
Yeah.
several questions, so don't wait till the end.
Okay. Some more photos of the inside of the garage, and on the right side, you can see that's the electrical room. The current scope is to replace the deteriorated equipment. If it were to turn into a more complex project that, as it gets more complicated, we start talking about rewiring or making changes like that. But you can see there's a lot of concrete coverings. Depending on the part of the structure, concrete is either structural or fire protection. But concrete that is cracked and starting to spall needs to be repaired regardless. So the proposed repair for the piles that are a little bit out of frame, we would where the pile jacketing, the existing pile jacketing, makes it like a corrugated pipe wrap around the pile, has corroded and the concrete and like the grout inside it is starting to fall apart. Put a new jacket around it, pump it full of grout, seal it, protect it. When we determine the piles are in good shape, it's the jacketing that needs to be repaired. But if you don't repair the jacketing, the piles deteriorate much more quickly. And then concrete repairs, chip out the bad concrete, splice in new rebar where the rebar is corroded, patch it, and keep it going. And then the pile supported walkway. On the left, this is the portion that runs north-south. This is the red shaded section. It's not much to repair. So that section would be deconstructed and a new walkway of the same size would be built in its place. The section on the right is a portion of the walkway that we would repair. So the repairs include the pile encasements, like you saw in you see on the right, where we wrap a protective jacket around the piles, pump it with grout, splice it, add additional support where the pile is too far gone. There's timber cross bracing that used to be there, so we'll be reconstructing that. If you ever stood on that walkway when a good wave comes through, you can, yeah.
I'm not standing on that walkway.
And then concrete repairs. So small repair, crack repairs, restoration of firewalls that were underneath that was constructed with. And then the new, like you mentioned, the picket fence to reduce wave transmission into the marina would get constructed kind of around the outside. And here's what the new section would look like. So we're trying to keep it in the same footprint. Keep the same size, same elevation, keep it as is. And that, yes.
Hi, I'm new to this because I'm the newest member of the land use committee here, but I have several questions and I'm gonna put them all really fast. This is something that has been around for a long time, correct? And it's for excursion related vessels? Is that basically what it is? It's not for the general public?
Correct. This is not, so the general public can and does access the marina for chartered events.
No, I
But
mean
it's not.
boats. I mean boats. This is just for charter boats.
It used to be for the general public.
Right, so it's not for the sailboater that comes up and down the East
Okay.
River or whatever, no, it's just for.
Well,
Maybe document.
sorry, yeah, right, sorry, can I speak to this in running the Doc NYC program? So the Doc NYC program is public berths across New York City. We've got a dozen or so public berths across the 5 boroughs. This is one of them. We have our Doc NYC program that operates those public berths, make sure that we're sort of managing the incoming inquiries from vessels that are looking for tie-up or a home porting space, and ensuring that proper insurance is in place, and that vessels are paying for their berthing. In the case of Skyport Marina, it is a popular location. Therefore, the slips that are available are all occupied under license or sub-berth licenses by, at this time, excursion vessel operators, small businesses and individuals, families who run vessels that are providing different excursions to members of the general public of New York City. So while I'm not familiar with a point in time where itinerant vessels came and went, but hearing from this committee, it sounds like that may well have been a service that was provided at a certain point in time in the decade plus that I've seen the operations of this facility. It's always been a very popular location for these small businesses in terms of home porting, and that's kind of the current operator profile or vessels that are dominating inside of the marina today.
Okay, so that means that these are operators that have contracts for a certain amount of time to be there?
They basically have a
year, how long are the contracts?
the contract, the licenses are 30-day licenses, but with some level of certainty over the course of a year for these operators. So we can, if there's fundamental problems with a licensee, they don't have long-term rights here.
All right, and there's only like, how many are the slips are there?
There's 14 slips here, and I'm kind of guessing a statement here, but there may well be 6 or 7 different businesses that have berths here. So several businesses have a couple of slips.
I have a few questions. One, do seaplanes dock at any point at the dock over there, be it overnight or for long periods of time? My second question is, how much longer can the parking garage stay in its current state? That is, how much longer before it completely deteriorates and falls into the East River? And then my last question is, has EDC given any thought into repairing this parking garage, but then repurposing the parking garage into some other kind of use, be it repurposing it into a building that might serve the community with community uses or community facilities, as opposed to maintaining the garage at its current location?
I see about 5 basketball courts on that couch.
I like that idea. First question. Oh, usage of the
whether they dock permanently or overnight or for a long time.
I was just, based on the earlier question about numbers, I was just digging into my emails and a most recent analysis from our director of aviation here, who oversees the heliports as well as the JFK and LaGuardia Airport, indicated that 95% of the time there is nothing at this dock, and when there are seaplanes dockside, it's predominantly, as mentioned, in summer moments. So there's not overnight docking to my knowledge at this location, but essentially, this is the East River, as your community board is along a good long stint of the East River, and now with the East Midtown Greenway, I assume many of the community members in Community Board 6 now have an even closer view of the currents and the dynamics on the East River. So that kind of comes to, the East River is not a lazy waterway. It's a serious body of water where you have twice a day the full force of Long Island Sound pushing through there, as well as the Upper Harbor, and you get two moments a day when you've got calm water, and that's when a lot of the vessels are pushing through. But this seaplane dock has been beaten up badly over the years because of that. And I'll let Sean speak to kind of the urgency around the parking garage itself, but I will say we actively right now have situations where we need to mark off parking spots because we've got spalling and concrete chunks that are falling from the ceiling. And given our fair city's greater recent sensitivity to the reality of aging parking garage structures, this is just not something that anybody has any interest in running the clock to see really testing the edge there. In terms of long-term plans for this unique facility, I really have to respectfully punt on this. This is about a state of good repair, making sure that we don't have a safety concern, but can be assured that there'll be ongoing community board engagement with regards to additions, changes to use, with regards to the parking garage.
Greg was going to address the parking.
I'm
Just to
sorry.
hear from them.
Yeah,
Right.
Okay,
Right, Max, you passed to your colleague to address comment about the parking.
the parking garages. The interior.
McLaren, just if you could speak to kind of the realities of what kind of clock we're under on the substructure piles.
Yeah, I mean, the substructure piles, are not the, corrosion of the piles themselves. Last time we did an inspection was not, or it wasn't severe, but the exposure of a number of them was. So that's why it's important to do. We're not proposing replacing the piles, rather protecting them so they don't corrode. So we can arrest the corrosion that's happening right now because the jackets are failing.
Is this project, does this include the discussion you just made about the garages, the interior, the various layers? Because we have a local law now that requires buildings to undergo those kind of studies in I think it's been in the last 3 years.
Yeah, so
Does this work include that as well? The levels of the garages with pieces falling out of the ceiling, et cetera, or is that gonna be a separate item?
So,
In other words, the load bearing capacity compared to the weight of the vehicles, are they still a match?
Well, no, not so much that.
Actually, can we just get like just a yes or no, just to understand? Does this include the interiors of the parking garage?
yes, yeah, so this project includes both repairs to the substructure, meaning the area kind of below the first deck, and repairs from the first deck up, which includes columns and beams and in the deck.
Ceilings?
Understood.
In the deck and
So it's the entire thing?
It's the entire
All right.
And Jim, it's on the point I raised before when we were discussing the duration versus the cost. What's the phrase? Quality, fast and cheap. The more we stretch out the project,
The worse it gets.
well, the more we stretch it out, the less disruptive it is.
Oh, the more costly it gets.
Or the more costly it gets because inflation, contractors have to keep moving around, it escalates the cost. So we're definitely working on striking that balance right now, in terms of how do we sequence this in a way that balances disruption with cost, meaning efficiency of how this gets done.
Understood. Let's hear from others who haven't gone to speak. Victoria, then Brendan, then Gabe.
Maybe it's already been asked, but, who are the users of this parking garage? Who's?
Yeah, so I sort of addressed that in the beginning. There's a little over 500 parking spots, 570 parking spots. About 312 of them are monthly users that live nearby. And then there's a small number that are yearly subscriptions. So they're, for example, a couple of spots that are enterprise, a couple of spots that are VA, vehicles from the VA. So it's a very small number, I think like around 10 to 15% that are annual sort of corporate, right, users. But
Or car share, that sort of thing.
Car share, that type of thing, right? But a majority, so 319 of the 570 spaces are local monthly, like.
So this
neighbors.
provide a good revenue for the city? It provides a good revenue or just?
Yeah, so the format is that we are in contract with the operator. And then the operator certainly makes money operating the parking lot.
What do we get from it?
The city, I don't have that number for you right now.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask.
She asked, yeah. you
From a
asked.
cost benefit analysis, you know, is it worth it to put the 13 million in there? Are we making any money? Are we losing money?
Well, the alternative is to sink in the water. It's not really an option.
570 cars going
I'm curious to understand vacancy rate then, because what you mentioned puts us at like what, 370 out of 570?
Yeah, and then there's like daily, right? Then there's like
Yeah,
people
you're saying
who come
it's
in.
320
Yeah.
monthly parkers.
So what's the average
More.
daily capacity of the parking?
Yeah, that was my
Yeah,
question.
I don't, we tried to get that information. They don't have, they weren't able to get it to us, but I think what they're saying is over half of, even if nobody came in as a daily user,
It's
one-time user, around 50% of the parking lot is subscribed by yearly and monthly users.
Wait, can we just hear from other, Gabe, Brendan, then we can come back.
So thank you, just a couple things. I know this is about, repair, right, in the status quo, but I don't think, a better time will ever present itself for us to ask, do we need a parking garage here?
Right.
It's the official statement of this board is that we think this is a suboptimal use of public assets. Even if it's 500 spots, even if they're 100% filled, there's 130,000 residents in this community board, so a couple hundred parking spaces, and there's still like 13,000 commercial parking spaces in CB6. So the idea that we need to maintain this in perpetuity, this incredibly dangerous, expensive to maintain parking garage on the water, I think is that now is the question to really ask, do we need this? Do we want this?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question and I am aware of the community board's position on it. I think that is a much longer term planning question that like we can have that and do this at the same time. But I'm saying is like, we can not do this and have that conversation.
I hear you, and nobody wants safety, like nobody wants what happened in the
Yeah.
financial district, but isn't this the ideal time to say, are we gonna put more money, public money into rebuilding a parking garage? This strikes me as the absolute perfect moment to be having that discussion.
Yeah.
I'm sure you will include it in your resolution.
Brendan?
Well played, okay.
Yeah, and speaking of like your resolutions and positions, our office has heard that the State Department of Environmental Conservation will have a comment period regarding this.
Yes.
Is there any word on when that will open? Is it already open?
So we are wrapping up, a response. They had a number of comments or questions and things they would like to change about the application. So once those comments are resolved, I believe, our permitting specialist sent me the packet to review before we passed it on EDC this morning. Once all of those comments are addressed, then they will open, I believe they confirmed it's gonna be a 45-day comment period.
So we'll let you know.
Okay.
Yes,
It has not opened yet, to answer your
It hasn't
question.
opened
it
yet,
hasn't
but,
opened yet, no.
it hasn't opened yet, but y'all will let me know when it is open.
Yes.
Or let us know, the community board.
Yes.
Okay,
Jim, then Larry?
If you've got 85% capacity or less, can I suggest that EDC look into converting that top layer to a basketball court or several basketball courts? Or whatever, badminton, whatever you want to do. And the second question I would ask all of you is, can you please clear, before you leave the venue, because I'll need it for the minutes, can you send a copy of your presentation to the office and give the office your business cards?
Yeah,
And
so
also
Brendan already
your
has
name?
this,
Oh, okay.
yeah, this
You
is,
got them? Beautiful. All right,
well, we can certainly leave cards and contact information.
okay, thank you.
All right, first a quick comment. Waterside Plaza underwent a very substantial rehabilitation because it was built on a platform over the East River. It was a lot younger than this when they commenced and completed that project, and were able to obviously save a lot of angst that you have right now, because this has been allowed to get to the point that it is. In terms of alternate uses in the short term, we've commented earlier about the terrible traffic that is in front of the garage because of this very heavy commercial party boat use. Maybe if there was less of it, it would be less traffic, but at the current rate of use, emergency vehicles have a hard time getting to the hospital. And is there any possibility, if there are spaces available in the garage, to utilize some of the space in the garage, as the Port Authority does at LaGuardia Airport, to have an Uber and Lyft staging area to pick up passengers when they come back from their trips?
I think that's something we can absolutely look into.
There's one last thing that is on the horizon, which I'm sure EDC is aware of, or another part of EDC, a proposal that the current administration has put forward. They've described a way of moving trucks off of roads and onto boats. The cargo delivery would be delivered to several nodes, one of which was proposed to be right here at this edge of the Skyport's garage. I don't know how that would work or if it would work, but are you aware of that?
Yeah,
Yes.
the
That's
team
all
is, yeah,
in my portfolios.
Okay.
sorry.
Yes. Blue highways.
Oh, okay. Do you want to make a comment on that in passing?
We're not, you're absolutely correct. It's still something that this administration and EDC is looking at. There are multiple sites throughout the city that we've identified through Myriad funding. We are not ready yet to make a presentation with details at this point, but it's something we are still looking into at this location.
But with the rehabilitation of this garage presenting an opportunity to repurpose the building for this, that's why I brought it up.
Yeah, I don't think, again, I think the theme here that we're trying to like really stress is that this rehabilitation is really for safety, repair, right? We tried to put rehabilitation in this deck as many times as we could. This is not to change any operation
Okay.
of what it exists, from what it exists now.
Okay, so it's a 2016 work in 2024.
That's correct, which is hard to swallow, and that's just the nature of capital projects that are complex, challenging, and Sean from McLaren kind of speaking to our state and federal permits for in-water work like this. You're doing well if you get through those permits in 15 months, and that's sort of ahead of doing your design work and doing your bringing construction managers online. And that's putting aside having a global pandemic that sort of changed fundamental fiscal realities. And then as Greg Dixon from our waterfront inspections team mentioned, we had an inspection in 2016. You don't want to be doing capital work in 2024 based off of an inspection in 2016. You want to be looping back for something fresh so that you can be working with a design team like McLaren on a contemporary version of problems as opposed to a historic view of problems.
I have just a quick question. The site is in a flood zone, and I'm curious whether there's been any analysis of basically just its resiliency for any possible future use.
Sean, if you could speak to the dimensions of this project that are fundamentally advancing some of those resiliency considerations.
Yeah, so some of the resiliency or the work that addresses that, the storm related resiliency. We did look at, graphic is it? It is the first level of the property and the upland as well is all several feet below the base flood elevation on the preliminary firm map. I think the last time I was on site, which was recently, the flood wall for the East Side Coastal Resiliency was getting built out of right about there under the FDR. So this is kind of outside the gate. So we did look at which elements it would be productive to raise. Ultimately, the walkway has to stay at its elevation in order for the property to stay functional. If you raise it 10 feet, the gangways then have to get really long down to the docks, and there's no room for that. Or the gangways get really steep, and then you have accessibility issues. We are seeking to, reduce. If you have your 100-year storm, the walkway would get overtopped as is and as proposed, but for your storms kind of in between, the wave screen will reduce the amount of swells and bucking around of the boats in the harbor. And where we're able, the floating structures, so the seaplane dock, the docks, the piles are getting raised so that as the docks don't float away.
And how about the structure itself, the garage?
So the garage itself, so the first floor is below the base flood elevation.
Okay.
I don't think there's any planned, I don't believe there's any planned raising of spaces at this time.
Presently, there's only 6'3" between deck bottom and ceiling height. So this is also a low ceiling garage, but best advice to folks who know folks is I would not leave your car on the first floor if you're expecting storm surge here. I think that the team is looking at other ways that we can think about this structure in ways where flooding events may take place and we're able to get back to operations smoothly and quickly afterwards.
Got it.
But fundamentally, we can't raise the entire garage 8 feet.
All right.
Right.
Why is this not getting just demolished? What was it?
Demolishing the garage itself. Oh, I think,
Then we can make a floating basketball.
Or a park.
Make the roof a new basketball court.
Well,
Several.
I'm asking,
Yeah.
like, well, it's like a lot of money to save the parking garage and, but cheaper to just.
Just put some netting over it and you got a basketball court.
EDC can speak more to this, but I think we have a structure, so we can advocate, say, include it in part of the blue highways, include it for like community activation. So instead of letting it sink, repurpose after we repair it.
Well, repurpose, yeah.
So, sorry, I would just chime in here and say like any repurposing would have to be reevaluated and probably some interim repairs would still be needed. So, we can still move forward with our project. If there was an opportunity to look at reusage, we can certainly do that. But, once again, we're trying to look at the structural conditions of the structure right now and make sure that that's fine. But definitely the opportunity for repurposing and future usages could be, discussed at a later date or now. But yeah,
especially since repurposing, if you start changing the use and the occupancy uses of different parts of the structure, there's a lot of building code implications
Right.
that, you can't just say, yeah, we'll turn the top deck into basketball courts.
Right,
There'd be a code review period, obviously people playing basketball are much lighter than cars. But there's certain requirements for, public access and
Restrooms.
egress and those sorts of arguments need studied before, or those sorts of propositions need studied rather than.
it just seems to me though, that you're, it doesn't sound like you're even at 80% of capacity. And you're probably gonna get a reduction in that, given congestion pricing. So it makes sense to consider that use down the road. And that's not a job for you, you're an engineer, that's a job for EDC.
Okay, one last comment, then I'm gonna move us on. Go ahead.
I have a question about what may be a ticking time bomb. What is the location and what did your survey determine the condition of the aviation fuel and the marine fuel storage tanks? The BP garage was heavily damaged in Superstorm Sandy, and that issue came up back then. What is the update on that?
Is that a question specifically about the BP fuel storage? Or are you asking about the fuel at the end of the wave screen that you had mentioned earlier?
Well, originally, when this structure was built by Marine and Aviation, it had a Gulf Oil sign on it. And I'm assuming that the operations of the gas station and the marina, at least as far as the fueling operation went, were combined. What is how is it set up now? And did you survey it?
Sean, correct, we in our surveys of the marina area have not identified any remnant infrastructure of fueling. Is that correct?
No, the utility designer on the project has been over the site multiple times, and all that's been identified out of the marina are water, electric, and sanitary.
So your party boats and seaplanes, none of them refuel here. You're saying?
Correct. I'm assuming that the seaplanes are refueling at other waterside docks, maybe at the other ends of their journeys. And I believe these excursion vessels are refueling in New Jersey.
Okay, because there's a law that relates to the decommissioning of underground storage tanks.
Very, very well aware of that. I spend a fair amount of time on the wonders of how many tanks you can find in New York City.
Okay, we're a little over an hour on this topic, so I'm just gonna, before asking for a motion, I'm just gonna remind folks that CB6 have voted on this multiple times. 1996, it was unanimous opposition to repair for concerns about use appropriateness for the neighborhood. 2011, it was approval, but asking for disposition of parking under the FDR. 2013, the Blue Way plan suggested repurposing the garage rooftop for community activation and urban farm and other purposes. And 2014 is the latest. We've talked about this, again, opposed to use, but support of bulkhead repairs and necessary urgent repairs. So I'm gonna ask for a motion and propose that we support the repairs, given that this is the urgency, include our comments about what we would like to see in the garage down the line, and invite EDC back to engage us to talk about blue highways and how we can use this for last mile delivery, community activation, and other purposes.
So moved.
Second.
All right, can we do roll call, please?
Yeah, when I call your name, please say whether you're in favor, opposed, abstain, or not entitled. Majaro Busamad,
In favor.
Tanya Arias,
In favor.
Victoria Benatar,
In favor.
Jim Collins,
Yeah,
Alf Militic,
In favor.
Rich Mintz,
In favor.
Larry Shire,
In favor.
Sandra Sherrod. Sandra?
I think we lost Sandro, he's not on.
Okay. Letty Simon,
In favor.
Gabe Terzo,
In favor.
James Vera,
In favor.
With all 10 committee members present in favor, this passes. And we need someone to write this.
I'll take a crack at it.
Okay.
Thank you, Alec. Awesome. Thank you, Team EDC. We appreciate it. Thank you, Sean.
And I'm happy to hang around if, for additional conversations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you.
you for your time.
All right, our next topic is okay, this is a shorter one. We just want to give an update.
Secret Service.
Okay, a quick update on the FDR drive. Some of you may be aware, we were assigned a fellow, Jake, who would be working on continuing the work on the FDR that we all started last year or earlier this year. The FDR task force has reconvened, and Kyle will be taking supporting leadership role on it. Our objective is to have the fellow come introduce themselves. He wasn't able to join today. We want him to come introduce himself, present the question he's tackling, and now we're focusing a little bit more on the cost of keeping the FDR. How much does it cost? Just like the talks we had here. And I think he would benefit greatly from everybody's feedback here to direct a little bit of his research. And yeah, otherwise we are still trying to present. We present to elected officials, board of president, presented to the council person, Keith Powers and others. We're continuing to present. We want to go to CB8 and CB3, but we're also refining a little bit our narrative to bring them on board our coalition. Any additions or any thoughts or questions?
Well, we
Gabe,
also
then
have
Sandy.
we also have a fellow doing loading zone research who's also going to be introducing themselves in January as well.
Okay, Sandy?
One thing we did find out is that apparently the state DOT controls anything that's elevated on the FDR, but if it's on grade, it's the city DOT. So it's more complicated, but possibly a better thing for us because the city is more responsive to its constituents than the state is. So just another piece of interesting news about here.
And so we are seeking a connection from state DOT who have been a little difficult to reach. We are reaching out to our elected officials to say, all right, connect us to the folks that we're supposed to work together. So we'll report back on that. Okay, with that, passing it on to James to talk about our proposed public uses of the water club site, 500 East 30th Street.
Yes, so I think I think it was our last meeting, right? We had a little bit of a lively discussion about uses. So we're going to continue that, do some research on what we're actually working with, what we could potentially work with. And just kind of organize things in a way that we can approach this in a step-by-step method, I think, that kind of gets to who we want to serve with that space, if we can use it for our public use. And then get into the specifics of how that use or what activities would take place that would serve the greatest range of people in the community. And then how we make that happen.
Some background, James volunteered, thank you so much for helping shepherd that work. Gib and I had initially were very ambitious and said we're going to do a visual workshop, and we didn't have enough time to do it, but thank you again. And yeah, anybody who has the capacity and interest to support, please do. And hopefully once we have that, initially we had sent a letter that Sandy and I helped draft, and we sent that to the city just to be on the record. But our purpose is to eventually, once we have our vision, we put it in a resolution, send to the city. That's our official statement.
Have we given any thought to a design, what do they call it, design?
Charrette.
Yes, that would be a few steps down the way. It's visuals and things like that are very interesting and exciting, but I want to make sure we're focused in on how we best serve the community before we get to that stage where we're actually putting things down on paper.
I can help with the visuals when the time comes.
I can help. What sort of help do you need, James?
We're just getting started, so I need a little time to
All right,
map
I'm
that out.
gone for the next 2 weeks, but when I come back in January,
We can
what
touch
I'll do is I'll
base.
give you my phone number.
Awesome, Sandy.
And are we thinking of interim uses as well as long-term? Because we know it's long-term too.
Yes, any long term is going to take a long
long time to do, so.
Problems exactly that occurred with the garage, so.
Right, you know, if I may,
Yeah.
you don't want to spend so much time talking about what to do with it that it falls into a state of bad repair and then
Right.
Well,
you don't get that choice.
Did we ever establish what condition the
The floatability of
float
those
is in?
barges.
you mentioned working on that project.
No, I'm not, unfortunately, I believe we pursued it, but we're not.
If we don't
selected.
have a number of alternatives for the community, how can we assess what the community wants?
Well, that's,
You know what I'm saying?
That we will get, but we will get to that point.
so we'll start with
But how
that.
how do you get to that point first? You know what I'm saying? You want the community to give some input, but you don't have a vision or alternatives for them to select.
Well,
That's why I was
didn't
saying
we
design.
provide, there was like a poll or something that was released earlier this year in which we got input from the community about a survey, right?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
solicited
But
that.
those jumped right into very specifics.
Okay,
What I'd like to do is have a group come together with the end result, the goals
okay.
for the space. And at that point, then we can target our specific activities to meet that goal.
Mhm.
Right, but we need to understand the existing conditions
Yes,
to see
yes.
how can we get to those goals.
And so we need to figure out how to get that information. But any kind of floating vessel that's been in the river for decades is
Yeah.
not going to be in good repair. And it's gonna be very expensive to repair to get seaworthy again. Tell me if I'm wrong, but
It can be like the garage.
Usually vessels are dry docked probably more for repairs and inspections, probably more frequently than water club float has been.
Yes.
yes.
Have you had any communication with EDC about what they're intending, other than the fact that they keep saying they're not sure or they're thinking about it? Is there any way of coordinating with them?
Got them here.
Yeah.
Oh, good, okay, thank you.
Sandy has an answer for you.
They got out,
Go ahead,
the
Sandy.
getting was good.
It's the same members of the EDC, it is one of Gigi's projects.
Yeah, they are the water people, they said.
Yeah.
So, and again, there's a lot of rumors flying around, but, the water side is very invested in this as well, so we really should try and work with them. But the last discussion they had was 110 million, they said, to fix just the barge.
And then the maintenance,
Cheaper than a
annual
parking
maintenance for
garage.
that barge.
Yeah.
How much would the city earn in salvage?
How much to push it into the water, let it float away?
Let's do that too.
Again, it's cost benefit.
It probably would be
analysis,
cheaper to buy a new
really.
barge.
It's just,
Yeah,
yeah,
That way, that
blow it up
part of
and
the
get it
plan,
done.
we can do like a public-private initiative, so we find how private funding.
I think that's the type of conversation we should have as we set our
And that,
objectives.
You know, then that could be, you know, if revenue, which I think is reasonable to include as part of our list of goals there. I think we should, then we can target how to make that work.
Right, because as it is, I mean, we need to have some private money to pursue.
Yeah. Everything costs a ton of money on our waterfront.
Yeah. I have some thoughts, but I'll hold on to
Okay,
those.
so, you know, let's work this out.
Yeah, so you'll see this on our agenda for next time we meet. Okay, in the chair's report, I'm gonna bring up the Spark topic. And I'm gonna give like a quick update, I know. So we've gotten a report back, from the, my laptop framing, from, the task force, that is the Public Realm Task Force, the Spark Square. They're not ready to present their findings yet, but I'll just share takeaways that we're allowed to share. Gigi's not here, so I'm not getting in trouble, but it's actually pretty positive. They've responded to a lot of the feedback on Public Realm. They have multiple options they want to share when they come to talk to us. There are still outstanding questions about the ped bike bridge, so there's more for us to talk about. But there are two topics that it's worth us following up in a resolution to put these in just in writing as our opinion. First, it was resurfaced. Requests by the committee were resurfaced about pre-K and 3K seats. That is not something we mentioned in our previous resolution. There's already an educational institution there. We're already investing a lot of money, but that was never mentioned. So part of the recommendation, if folks think it makes sense, is for us to elevate this and say, as you're considering all these uses, we have millions of square feet, we're changing zoning, so we're building more than initially was intended, might as well add this valuable community asset.
Absolutely.
Any thoughts or feedback on that or objections?
No objections.
No, don't.
Okay.
Pre-K and K, that's fantastic.
That's the first. The second is a little more tricky. The special permit that they're requesting for labs, I'm gonna try to simplify this, it's even complex for me and I've read it quite a few times. They're asking for a special permit to put labs that will allow them to make this even more enticing for future tenants. The downside is that if they place it, we can no longer have any housing, even in the future, on that same tax lot. That's how the zoning code works, because that lab use is very particular. That being said, if we deny that permit, or if we say we are not in favor of you getting the labs permit, kind of defeats the point of this project. They cannot carry their project without it.
Can I ask a question on that point?
Go ahead.
It's possible to divide up the zoning lot and make it a lab zoning lot just exclusively and carve it out.
Yeah, so we've actually, go ahead, Cindy.
And just to clarify, there was the special permit that they're looking for allows them to manufacture.
Right.
The city of Yes established that you can have labs and housing on this combined. So what they're looking at is a very specialized use that some of these labs might want to manufacture.
Yeah.
So it's not that they can't go ahead and have a lab use, it's they cannot do certain restrictive things that some labs may want to do.
Right. So the suggestion that I'm coming to the committee with, and again, feel free to shut it down, add to it, is to reiterate our interest in flexibility in design that allows for future use. How they do it seems like a technical problem, whether they divide the tax lot, whether they segment different part of it, sounds like a them problem.
But I think we should also indicate that they should consider different routes to make it work.
Right, to allow for the possibility of future use, should the market they're projecting, hopefully
Right.
the economy goes great. But if the market they're projecting for this doesn't materialize, well, we would like these not to sit vacant and use them for our current housing crisis.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And just, I mean, I'm the one who's probably instigating this, to be fair. But I went to the city planning presentation, and the Alexandria, which is another lab further up the street, brought this up as a concern. And they talked about, right, that currently there's 1 million square feet empty of potential lab space. Alexandria is building more. So it was seen potentially as a conflict of interest, that Alexandria doesn't want them to build labs that compete with theirs. But the way they put it was that, you know, it's all part of an ecosystem. We can't have empty labs, a lot of empty lab space, because it ultimately, everybody then competes with each other and it sort of degrades the whole system.
I'm sorry, when you mentioned 1 million square feet of empty lab space, where is it? Where is this?
I'm guessing at various locations throughout the city. I'm not sure. Alexandria may have empty lab space.
And the reason that it's empty is because it's not rentable to do the labs there, or is there a
I
reason?
believe no one's renting it, is the problem.
So why they wanna make more labs than no one's renting?
Well, it's 2030, and, you know, we've seen the presentations that they've made. They want to make this, you know, a vibrant community with the possibility of having many people, you know, hospitals. So they've asked for this as a, you know, kind of a.
So that assumes that 1 million square feet of empty lab space can be repurposed? What is
No,
it
I think
doing? It's
there's-
just sitting there
I
empty?
believe they assume that it will be used in the future as people start going back to working.
That's a very strong assumption.
Wait, can I hear Larry then?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little confused about segregating out lab space as a distinct use, because all through my life, I've understood that laboratory uses are integral to high schools, to colleges,
Right.
for education purposes, to
Medical
hospitals,
schools, medical schools.
and, you know, medical schools, as you
Right.
say. To what degree is this a commercial lab having to be treated differently?
Right.
And are we really running afoul of this, zoning, use restriction, with any of these activities which traditionally have included labs.
I'll just say from what I know, they are basing their decisions on a vision for a market that will develop. They've done their studies, they've run the numbers, they're very smart people who do this work, but a lot of it is projections and you cannot really predict how things are going to play out. So I think makes sense for us as a community board to say, do your thing, but allow for the possibility that your plan might not play out as you had hoped.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I'm cautiously optimistic that the lab space will not all go fallow. They have made a pretty strong case, but I think this restriction on lab use prohibiting housing seems like a self-inflicted wound that maybe we can ask the city itself to address.
Yeah.
Because if you can have pre-K, certainly, if there's nothing that can happen, if it's so dangerous it can't be near residential, then why are we having kindergarten?
Right.
Yeah.
Very good, very good point.
Yeah,
We're having a hospital
yeah.
with labs.
And sick people.
That's like an island problem. Okay, so in the interest of time,
Sorry, Anne has a.
oh, go ahead, Anne.
Just a moment, Anne should be able to speak now.
Yeah, actually, Larry and Gabe both said kind of some of the things I was thinking, but the fact that they're looking for a special permit, kind of by definition, can't we include in our, like, the specialness of this permit that it includes the ability to allow for residential or other kind of, I don't know what the language is, but sort of community facilities? Like you say, if it's good enough for a 3K, like hopefully it's good enough for residential. So that was just my thoughts.
Okay, thank you. I can take a stab at that resolution. Gabe had already started helping with it, so we'll have that. Just so you know, we will need to vote on it. We do a roll call now, so we vote full board in January, so we get it out before the February City Council vote. And so if folks are in support of us drafting a resolution to put these 2 points in it, maybe we do a roll call on that, or do we show of hands? How do we do this? We're voting to write a resolution. Just do a show of hands.
And it would be before the full board in January, correct? It would be a roll call vote.
Okay.
But just for clarity's sake, make sure it's clear with committee members what those 2 points are.
Is everyone clear on our request?
Do you want to repeat that?
Yeah,
The 2 points.
let's recap.
We are reiterating that we would like to see added 3K and pre-K seats, and that we would like them to factor potential of future use housing into their design.
Yes.
That's fine. Okay. Yes. Okay.
Okay, with all that being said, when I call your name, please say whether you are in favor, opposed, abstain, or not entitled. Majed Abdul Samad,
In favor.
Tanya Arias,
In favor.
Victoria Benatar,
In favor.
Jen Collins,
favor.
Alec Militek,
In favor.
Rich Nitz,
In favor.
Larry Shire,
In favor.
Letty Simon,
In favor.
Gabe Terzo,
In favor.
and James Vera.
In favor.
With all 10 committee members in favor, this passes.
Thank you. Any old or new business? Seeing none,
Oh, actually, wait a second. Who's
Seeing
writing
one.
well, I guess,
the resolution, I'll write it.
okay.
With Gabe's support.
It's already
Thank you, Gabe.
It looks fantastic.
Perfect. Okay. Seeing no objections, meeting is adjourned at 8 PM. Thank you all.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy New Year.
Yes.